Surviving or thriving, the most important decision which we need to take in our lives, as the strategies or tactics or habits you form to survive will not be applicable when you want to thrive. But in today's episode, we have a guest in the house who has done both of these things. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Aaditya Mehta, and you are listening to podcast on personality development. Today, we have a professionally certified ICF executive coach and a senior HR professional. And personally, I have given her a name that is Survivor and Thriver because she has done some incredible things in her life. And obviously, she is going to let you know about that as well. So please allow me to welcome Carole Stizza. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But
Did. Great job.
thank you. Thank you so much, Carole. So, Carole, welcome to Podcast on Personality Development. I'm so grateful that you have taken out your valuable time and being a part of the show.
My pleasure. It's always fun.
Wonderful. Carole, I have given the outlines of your introduction, but people would love to hear a more detailed version of your introduction if you would like to give.
So, surviving and thriving. I think we all have times in our life where something happens. It's really kind of bad. And you're in the middle of surviving it. And you do survive it. So, the surviving part has been, I've been one of those rare birds that when I was 6, I was in a car accident that took family members. When I was 17, I was in a car accident. Now, these car accidents were all stopped and turning left. So I'm not scared of driving. I just really don't like left turns anymore.
Okay.
So 6, 17, and in my early 30s, I was also in a car accident, stopped and turning left. And these are things that you can't control. My car wasn't moving. And through injuries, through loss, you do get busy surviving. There was a point in my life where someone asked me, who did you get to become in a positive way because of the bad things that happened? I go, that is a brilliant question. It makes you look at the things you survived differently because you are here. You're already a brilliant person. So something had to come out of it in a good way for you not to get consumed by it. I think the most life-changing episode that happened was in about 10 years ago. I got a very unfortunate cancer diagnosis that was not pretty. And we got to sit down as a group, doctors, family, and there were some people who were very upset. And I go, oh, no. What are we going to do? What's going right that we can hold on to? What do we have control over? How we think, what we do, what we eat. Let's track all the right data. Let's track what's going right. And when you start looking at who you got to become because of something that you survived, that's thriving. When you get to look at what's going right and track the data that you can work with and knowing what you can and cannot control and going after what you can control, that's thriving. So it's been a bumpy journey. All surviving is. There's nothing that's easy and dreamy about it, any of it. But I think that we forget to give ourselves permission to choose how we look at things too. And we have choice. We have choice in everything we do. And sometimes we forget that. It's easy to play the victim and think that we had no control or we have no control. But we have more control than we think. We have to give ourselves permission for it.
Wow, that's a pretty great thought. And I must agree that I was actually going to ask you about the mindset question, but I think you have already answered that. The mindset which you had during all, especially during the cancer, you had this mindset that, you know what, let's get over to the things which are in under control, not to the things which are not in our control. So that's one of the greatest mindsets, I would say, because most of the people would be like, after surviving three car accidents, then you get a cancer. And I've read that in your bio as well. It was a stage 3 cancer, which you were diagnosed with. And during these times, most of the people would be thinking and maybe complaining to the Lord up there and say that, why me?
Right.
Like, many people would say that this is not like why my life
Right.
is in a way where I need to face so many things.
Right.
But the question over here is, I mean, I do understand like you had a great mindset during your cancer, but before that, when you were 17 or when you were 30, because most of the audience of the podcast is also between that age, and many people are facing like a lot of things in their lives right now, and those might be the little things which are bothering them, but they still have this mindset that, why am I stuck over here, and why
Right.
this happens with me, and all these, they take themselves as victim, and they say like, this is going to happen, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quit. That's what generally people would think. Okay.
There,
So
yeah. I want to honor those moments because we all have them. There
yes.
are those moments where you're like, it's just really easy to lay here and pretend that I'm just not going to deal with the day. I'm going to just
Right.
kind of quit for a moment. I think I think that's a natural response when it feels hard.
Hmm.
But I really want to point out something that we all have those moments, but let them be a moment. Don't let them be a
Hmm.
month. Don't let them be a year. Let them be a moment and honor it
Hmm.
because that type of pressure.
Hmm.
I think it was Billie Jean King, the famous tennis player, who said, "Pressure is a privilege because
Hmm.
pressure is the only way to make a diamond." So
Hmm.
when you have a bad day, consider it pressure. It's
Right.
pressure that's challenging you, and you don't change unless you've been challenged. You just can't.
Right.
Challenge the change. So when we want to ask, why me? I want people to understand why those types of questions, why makes the brain go backwards,
Hmm.
is backwards thinking. Suddenly you have to defend, well, because of this. Don't defend. Instead, try to ask yourself what and how questions. What am I going to do with this? How will this change me for the better? What's going to happen tomorrow when I'm not like this? How do I want right now to be different? What am I going to learn? How will I change? Because those are forward moving questions. Those are action questions. And a lot of times when we get stuck in the black vortex of inner thinking, the why me, that these drive anxiety, we get anxious because we don't have clarity. To
Hmm.
create clarity, you have a choice and you have the power to do it, but you have to create the clarity by asking yourself action questions, what and how questions.
Hmm.
So we find that when people are saying that they are feeling anxious or they're suffering the physical ramifications of anxiety, it's good to get curious
Hmm.
about somebody outside of yourself. How would someone else handle this? What did someone else do?
Hmm.
And that curiosity takes the focus away from the internal thinking to the external thinking, and it helps jumpstart you into asking different questions of yourself. We know we're going to have the moments of just surviving the moment.
Hmm.
But in order to step into thriving, you have a choice, you have control, You just have to ask yourself different questions.
Wow, that's pretty much like a test match cricket for me. Like I have always taken the situations as a test match cricket, and I'm a big
Mm.
fan of it as well, you know. And in a test match cricket, it happens that there are certain moments, you know, where you have to stay there and defend, and there are certain moments where you have to attack, you know. So I mean, that's completely relatable for me and for all the people who love watching cricket. And it's like, you know, it's a complete shift of mind as well for the people who are not going with the good days right now. I wouldn't say a good day, but even good days, you know. So there might be a series of days as well which is not going as per planned, and then this mindset comes, oh my god, I'm stuck and I'm not willing to go ahead, and etc etc. However, Carol, you have mentioned that, you know, you had a car accident when you were 6, 17, and 30. And these three car accidents while taking, you know, or while turning towards the left, it it sort of creates that mindset that I'm not going to, you know, drive anymore. Or sometimes it happens that I am not good enough for that. Or sometimes it might just be that, you know what, every time I am the victim and I'm just going to stop. And at the age of 17 and 30, that is, you know, at a pretty high level. Your mental state becomes, you know, like pretty anxious in those ages.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure, like, later in the life, you had that wisdom that it's fine to, you know, have these challenges, it's fine to have these moments, it's fine to honor these moments, and it is a great idea. But what were your mindset when you were 17 and 30, and how did you get out of it?
So when I was 17, uh, I was probably I was in intensive care. It was a bad accident. I was stopped and the other car was going 60 miles an hour. So I was hit and hit hard. And I remember being in a very dark hospital room and I overheard two people talking and they said, "Yeah, I heard the other driver say they just never even saw her." It was at night. And
Hmm.
it was in that moment, you know, you're in a drug induced haze, but you're kind of coming out of it to hear something that I thought to myself, wow, this must be what it feels like when someone really feels invisible. Because
Hmm.
I'm in a lot of pain. And I can only imagine what it's like to feel invisible on a daily basis.
Hmm.
And I just remember having that thought. Now, it took 2 weeks, you know, I had to recover and get back to, I was in school, you're getting
Hmm.
back to school and you're trying to physically heal. There were a lot of, you know, a lot of injuries.
Right.
I had that moment of what do I do with this? And
Hmm.
so I went back to school and decided that I would smile at everyone I physically saw because I didn't want them to feel invisible on my watch. I wanted them to
Oh.
know that somebody saw them. And so I
Hmm.
smiled. I smiled a lot. But it was just that a connecting of the dots. I mean, I was sitting in a hospital for 2 weeks, probably helped me think this through. But I just remember knowing how painful it
Hmm.
felt to be told that no one saw you. And
Hmm.
that's what I did with it. So I don't know if I had wisdom at that time, but
Hmm.
I was just, you do have those moments. Why me?
Right.
And then I immediately go, well, what am I going to do with this?
Hmm.
And
Wow.
maybe that's just how my brain's kind of wired.
Hmm.
But I think we all have a choice to think that way when we need to.
Wow. That's a pretty deep thing, I would say. And audience, I would say you better write that, because I'm going to do a lot of thought process on these statements which Carol is giving right now, because it's so deep and it's so intense that you actually need to have a thought process on it. And I feel this is one of the things which is which has been a great turning point for me as well in my life, although I am just 30. But there have been moments for me, and there is one of my mentor who told me this exact same thing, like, you have always have to ask yourself, how can you make things better, what can you do to make it right, and always think about the solution. And these were in my darkest days as well, when someone came to me and said these things, and I'm still very grateful to her. But these are some things which actually affects the mind, and later on, to get out of it, it takes like a huge effort and a huge pain to get out of it. But I feel what you did, just thinking like, what I'm going to do with this, I think
Yeah.
that itself is a pretty big thing to do. And you said that your brain is wired that way, but I feel you have that great thought process right from the beginning. And I I feel that it's because of you people. I stand on your shoulders and I can look far, far away. So that's the best thing I have heard so far. So that's a great thing. Apart from that, Carol, like you mentioned that when you were into accident, you thought what you're going to do about it. At the age of 30, you again met with an accident, and you thought that maybe that even then you thought like what you're going to do after that. But cancer was a pretty big thing, like accidents, when you survive, but this was stage 3 cancer. So after surviving, like, three accidents and a stage 3 cancer, was there any change in your living life?
So at the time of my diagnosis, I was going to grad school. I was working remotely for a consulting firm. And then we throw on top of that the chemo and the radiation and the surgeries. And it was a lot to juggle. So things started to, my performance was starting to buckle. The
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing when I look back at this time, I had fought for about a year to get my doctor to take me seriously because I just knew something wasn't right. But you trust people who have gone to school for this, and you're like, she's like, oh no, it's normal. It's I'm aging and blah blah blah.
Right.
Like, that's not normal. It's that you know your body. And
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody. My mom died in the car accident when I was 6. So I didn't have other females in my family life to go, oh no, no, honey. If you think something's wrong with your body, just go. So
Hmm.
I didn't feel I had permission to be my own advocate. So I
Hmm.
finally got impatient, and I went for a second opinion. Um, Finally got, tests and everything that done. That's how we got the diagnosis. I I realized that I had waited. I I think we're conditioned to wait for
Hmm.
other people to tell us it's okay or give us permission. We wait for someone to give us a compliment. We wait. We
Hmm.
we wait. We wait for
Right.
everything.
Right.
And I finally go, wait, if we're waiting, we're not
Hmm.
going after what matters
Right.
to us.
Hmm.
Now, I had also waited to tell the people I worked with what I was going through. So I'd left myself very open to harsh criticism when my performance started to dip. So when I finally say, oh, well, I need to let you know what I'm going through, they're like, holy moly, what? I mean, I got a lot of support, but I was also kind of wanting to think I could handle on my own.
Hmm.
Anything big in your life needs a village.
Hmm.
There is not one single person who stood on the Olympic stage that didn't have a village. Even though they did the performing, they had to have support. So I really learned the value of not waiting to tell people what I'm going through or what I want or what
Hmm.
I would love to see. So, but I did become very cognizant of all that I could control because that was within my power. So I changed the way I ate. I changed the way I um, went after meditation. I started including a lot of better holistic practices in my life. I changed the way I thought. I always went like, what's going right? What's going right? And I think we are used to, from a survival standpoint, to look at what's the risk? What can I fix? What can I improve?
Right.
That won't help you move in the right direction. If you ask what's going right, it makes your brain think differently and
Hmm.
reduces the negativity and balances the drama.
Right.
And I needed to really balance that because it's easy to go to dark places when your mortality is in question.
Yeah.
Um, so I really did jump in with both feet in recognizing all that I could control and gave myself permission to ask what I needed to ask, to go after what I wanted to go after, to talk about things, to look at what was going right. But I also got very impatient with the way we all wait. Like if I was waiting a year for someone to take me seriously in my health, where was I waiting at work?
Yeah.
And it really did open up a new area of research for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, I was going through grad school. Um, I started understanding more about what the brain really wants. And the brain is constantly scanning the universe for two things all the time. Where do I
Mm-hmm.
fit? And where do I grow next? Which
Right.
means, in what am I doing right? So I don't forget that. And where can I grow next? It
Hmm.
doesn't have a place for negativity. So you
Hmm.
can control who gets in your head by asking better questions about, so what's going right? What am I doing right? What's the best thing I'm doing right now for you? And where do you see me growing next? You can
Hmm.
go after that information. You don't have to wait for it. And
Hmm.
that's what came out of that when I came out very healthy, because when I really stepped into controlling everything I could, what I ate, what I did with my body, what I thought, how I gave it rest, my numbers in the cancer world, numbers are a big thing,
Hmm.
were amazing very fast. And so they were like, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing
Hmm.
is working and working really well. And I go,
Wow.
okay, on the right track. So I think you have to go after understanding what you can control and giving yourself permission to control it. Don't wait
Hmm.
for someone to go, oh, I'm not going to cook that for you. I'm like, okay, well, I'll figure it out. I'll do it.
Hmm.
I'm fine. But
Hmm.
also to go after the information your brain wants. What's going
Hmm.
right? Where can I grow next? And if you can start to ask those questions at work, that is going after the feedback you want and need when you want and need it. So if you're having anxiety at work, it's because your brain doesn't know what you're doing right or where to grow next. You can
Hmm.
actually solve that anxiety by asking those questions.
Wow. See, I mean, I'm getting some great wisdom from you right now. I mean, these are some, great hits right now to me because, there has been a, a lot of things going on. And I feel you giving me these questions to ask myself. I think that's the best thing happening right now. And for the many people who are listening to us right now, it's definitely helping them. And related to asking questions about how you can ask your brain or how brain can ask the same thing to itself, like, what are the areas which I'm going to improve? And is there another question, like, do I have to wait or do I have to do these things? Now sometimes it might be the case that you need to wait, and let's say there might be some times where you don't need to wait and you have to take a certain action. Now during these times, like, what I have noticed is that sometimes you need to wait, but your brain tells you no, you take an action. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's vice versa, like your brain tells you to take the action, but you know that you need to wait. So what we should be doing during these kind of situation arises?
Well, I think it's important to ask yourself, what is the one thing you're waiting on? What
Hmm.
is it that you're waiting on? Because if it's something you can't control, then you have to really get a it's what I call doing fearless inventory. What are the facts?
Hmm.
Is what I'm waiting on based on a story in my head or
Hmm.
facts? Because if
Hmm.
it's a story in your head, I'm going to poke, as a coach, I poke those stories. Tell me more about the story in your head. Why do you think you have to wait for this? What are the facts? How do
Right.
you know? How do we
Hmm.
test those assumptions? Because we all
Hmm.
live our life based on the stories in our head from the
Right.
perceptions we have. And you
Right.
have to bust the perception to get to new thinking. So
Hmm.
that's my job as a coach is what's the perception? Is it a true perception? What are the facts? Have we tested those assumptions? Because your
Hmm.
brain is normally connected to your gut, and your gut is your smartest brain of your entire body. So when your gut's telling you something, stop and listen because it knows. Physically, your body is a machine that holds up that brilliant brain of yours. And when your
Hmm.
gut's going, oh, honey, listen to me, take
Hmm.
the time and go, what is my gut trying to tell me? Am I scared? I can do hard things when I'm scared.
Hmm.
What's it? Your gut wants to protect you too. So it's up to you to critically analyze. If your gut is just like, you're scared, so let's just acknowledge you're scared and prepare you to deal with something because you're scared. Okay.
Hmm.
Or this is so not good. Don't go near it with a 10-foot pole. So when your gut talks, listen to it, but analyze it. What is
Hmm.
based on a story and what's based on fact?
Right.
So let's say, to finish your question, your brain's telling you one thing, but you think you need to wait.
Right.
Do you have an example in mind?
Yeah, sure. So let's say there is this amazing project which is going on, and I have like, let's say, 3 days to take a decision on it, whether I should be doing this or that. Okay. And there are other people who say around, no, you should take, the right option, not the left one, because it has like these things in these things. And then you have these things, uh the things on the left, which are going to do these kind of things. And then there is one person or maybe couple of people who comes and say, dude, you need to take the decision faster because it's going to affect your performance, let's say, because your decision making is too slow. So these are the things which comes up when you are working in a corporate, and when you have to take decisions. The second example is like, like I know that somewhere I have this feeling that I'm not feeling well nowadays. Just an example.
Yeah.
And I say to myself that, what, this might be because there is too much heat and there is climate change happening, and that's the reason it's happening. It will probably get fine in next week. And on the other side, it might be some serious issue. I don't know about it. But at one stage my mind said, no, I should go to the doctor, I should go to the doctor, I should go to the doctor. But the other side, what you feel is, no, I should wait for a week, I should wait for a week, I should wait for a week. you know so these are some examples which I have in mind.
So when you're stuck in decision making,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're weighing two things, or when
Mm-hmm.
you're weighing two choices
Mm-hmm.
and you don't feel good, right? So first you have to take care of what makes you not feel good. Could it be the anxiety over the two decisions you're stuck between and all the chatter that you're hearing? Make decisions faster, pick A, pick B, da, 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 da. Is
Mm-hmm.
that what's causing you not to feel good? That's internal stress becoming physical.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Okay.
were you not feeling good before the decision conundrum? So I would take those apart and
Mm-hmm.
say, what is the one thing that needs to happen for you to feel calling a doctor is warranted? Or do you need that? Is it just this thing in your head?
Hmm.
If you don't know what's wrong, can you describe your symptoms to a doctor clearly? So a doctor can say, sounds like you have a virus, sounds like internal stress, but we'll run some tests, whatever we need to do.
Right.
Um, when you're not feeling 100%, Your body is talking to you. So you need to take a moment and listen to it and connect the dots of when did it start? What's bringing it back up? What happens before it gets worse? It could be internalized stress. It really could.
Right.
Because our brain is an amazing hard drive. And when it gets bad thinking, it's like it gets a virus and it
Right.
comes out in physical form all the time. So
Right.
you need to check the virus that might be
Mm.
invading your hard drive.
Wow.
When you go to the decision stuck part between project A, project B, and how fast you do or do not make decisions, this is a great opportunity to ask better questions for those who might be affected. Because you can say, okay, from your point of view, what's the number one thing that makes A really beneficial for me? What's the number one thing that makes B beneficial for me? And gains perspectives outside of your own thinking. Again, when we look outside and get curious, it helps give us more information to deal with that really clears up our own anxiety about things. Again, anxiety is kind of derived because we don't have clarity. To get clarity, you have to ask some questions of other people who might be affected by this. People love to give you their opinion, but their opinion may not matter.
Right.
So if their opinion matters, ask them, what's the number one thing you want me to come out on the other side, being, doing, having, which is making you pick one or the other, because they may not have all the information either. Stepping into asking provides new conversations that allows you new verbal processing that helps your brain think faster.
Wow. That's some pretty great advice. Thank you so much for that. I feel this is completely a great conversation which we are having right now. And I feel these are one of the great tips as well. So audience, I would like to tell you this. If you are not writing this, make sure to listen to it again and again, because these are some great wisdoms, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to help you out a lot, not only in corporate life, but it will also help you in your college or maybe school where you're going. And it will help you to take decisions whether you have to pick a subject, or whether you have to pick a project, or whether you have been a leader and you have to assign tasks to people. These are the things which are going to help you. So make sure that you do that. And Carol, this has been a great conversation. But now, we have talked a good amount of part where surviving was the key part. Talking about the book which you have launched. Okay. Now, when did you decided that you want to launch this book? Like, first of all, you want to write a book. What actually got into your head that you want to write a book? And what are certain things which you are offering through this book to the audience?
So I never set out to write a book. I loved English, but not that much. Um,
Of course.
so it was when I was trying to do research on how to get better at training leaders on how to give feedback. And then I ran into some research at Harvard that said teaching people how to give feedback fails 95% of the time. And I was like, well, that's not good, because that's what I've been doing. Well, huh. Instead, what they found is that when you can teach people how to go after the feedback they want, when they need it, and when they can use it, because they are the person asking and can control what information they get, that's the type of feedback that works. So then I started looking for that research, and there wasn't any. There was just a little bit of research done from consultants out of Harvard on conflict negotiation. And they didn't tell you how to go
Right.
after the feedback you wanted. So I sat down and go, okay, well, if I have to completely change everything I've been doing in training and coaching people on feedback, I didn't know how to do it. And I studied national speakers. How do they grab an audience? How do you grab somebody's attention at work so that they'll ask you, how do you ask a good question? How do
Hmm.
you get their perspectives of how you're doing? And I just had to really dig into a lot of different research. And
Hmm.
that's when I realized, well, I have an opportunity to kind of put something out in the world on this topic, because especially during now with more remote work and more hybrid work, people feel more and more invisible to those who are grading their performance. And that we all need to be able to get feedback when we can use it, when we need it the most, so that we maintain our energy and do good things at work instead of just getting frustrated. So I set out to write it. I rewrote it 2 or 3 times. I put it on the shelf for about 6 months. Yeah, it's just a saga of writing a book, because half the time, if you never started out to be an author, you start to create some stories that maybe because it has been written, nobody wants it to be written.
Right.
That's a story you make up in your head. And I had to get over that. I'm no different than anybody else. I can create a stupid story. No different.
Right.
When I wanted to put it out, I decided to self-publish because a publisher owns your book when they
Hmm.
decide to pay for it, and I wanted to be able to redo it as I gained more research. So I chose self-publishing on my own and
Hmm.
really picked some phenomenal editors that helped it. Just everybody needs an editor.
Hmm.
Everybody needs somebody else's eyes on it.
Hmm.
So when I launched it, it was designed to be able to help everybody go after the positive feedback their brains want and need, so they understand the value they're offering to their organization, and sometimes just to get information from a client.
Hmm.
What I've realized is, as people have picked up the book, heard me speak, or just understood what this framework or these 4 steps can do in asking a great question, they now can ask questions of anybody about anything, anytime, including toxic coworkers, their boss, a
Yeah.
client. And so it turned out to be a really fun adventure
Hmm.
once it was out in the world, because I could say, yeah, this is, oh yeah, you could do, yes, you could ask that. Yes, you could ask that. So what I mean by the 4 easy steps is after the book was launched, I created an acronym, ASK, with an exclamation point, ask.
Hmm.
But the whole premise of the book was designed to give you tangible tools so you could actually go to work and assign the right context for the conversation. I want to talk about yesterday's meeting.
Hmm.
Helps everybody be successful. Select one thing you want to know, because one thing to focus on is the best thing. Say, what is the
Hmm.
one thing that you feel went really well in that meeting?
Hmm.
K is to know their perspectives. And you don't know their perspective, so you have to ask for it. So
Hmm.
K is knowledge. How did you, walk me through how you recognize that as the best thing for you in that meeting. Let them
Right.
walk through their vision, because
Hmm.
when you get their perspective, they become invested. They want to know, wow, I didn't realize that you wanted to know that. And now that you know it, what are you going to do with it? And that exclamation point at the end was just as a trigger to ask action questions. How would you like to see this done in the next meeting? What can
Hmm.
we take from this meeting and make the next meeting better?
Hmm.
Just asking what and how questions moves it into an action step, so that you've not only gained a really cool thing, they shared with you how they see it, and now you're brainstorming on how do we keep this up. So I
That,
really wanted people everywhere to get permission to ask.
wow. Man, that's really amazing. So after going on with all these things, you managed to write a book and managed to do a research, and that research was based on giving people a freedom to ask. I think that's wonderfully narrated story and of your life, I would say. And I feel that's something which we all need to get inspiration from as well, because uh nowadays we all feel in our mind that, you know what, I'm going to do this. And somehow we find out that the thing which we are doing has been successful. So we try to change the thing which we were doing. So we try to make a shift towards some other perspective or some other case which we want to work on. But what you did is, when you found out that this isn't working out, like the 95% of the times, you made sure to make more research on it and find out what needs to be done. I think that's the highlight of this
Mhm.
episode, that when you know that things aren't working pretty well, there are things which you can do to make it better. And I feel, you saw their opportunity, that this might be the first thing which I am doing,
Mm,
and giving out to the people, whereas other people would see like there is not much scope over here, let's switch to something else. So I think you have this grit, you have this, you insist your mind to stick to that one thing, and make sure that you finish what you have started. Although it's not getting any success, I'll make it a
mm,
successful thing, so I think that's one of the things which I found pretty admirable right now, because, and I feel like I should have that quality, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to work on that as well. So having that persistence towards something is itself a commendable thing. So thank you so much for sharing that. However, in the book, you mentioned like you are giving people a freedom to ask, and that's a great thing. What would you like people to embrace in
mm.
their lives?
I think what I'd like for people to embrace is asking themselves better questions. For instance, what is going right?
Hmm.
What's going right? Ask that question of yourself and everyone else, because it turns the conversation into a positive. At
Hmm.
least plants the seed. I've met people like, nothing's going positive. Just ask me that later. Blah, blah, blah. But I planted a seed. I said, well, I'm going to come back and ask you the same question again and again and again. When you give gave when you gave me credit for taking the one thing about feedback and diving into different, I had to ask myself, well, what is going right currently?
Hmm.
And people still want feedback. That's what's going right. So that's what kept me on the topic. What's going right? We still need it. But if they're
Hmm.
telling me I'm doing everything wrong about it, how do I meet that need? So when you are stuck, or when things are going south, or when you're having those moments, asking what is going right normally lets a ray of sunshine in that
Hmm.
highlights things and lets you look at things a little bit differently and give some energy back to do something about it. So I would want them to embrace that first,
Right. Okay.
and then give themselves permission to evaluate the stories in their head and guard who you let into your head, because you can control your choices about how you see things and what you do with things all the time.
That's pretty amazing. And I think, do you feel that, although you said it, that you want people to embrace these two important things, but do you feel that it comes naturally easy to the people to embrace these things, or it takes like certain efforts to do that? And
That's
what
not
kind of efforts?
so. I just want to acknowledge that our brains look for threats and problems so that we can, make sure we're
Yeah.
safe all the time. So
Yeah.
we have a tendency to look for all the things wrong with everything first.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay. That's just the way the brain works. But the next thing the brain wants to do is like,
Hmm.
okay, we know all that. How are we going to make it better? And the very first way to make it better is to ask that question. Okay, well, let's look at what's going right.
Hmm.
And it does shift the brain. You can just feel the grinding halt of the brain going one way, because now you're asking it to go a different way. But the moment it goes in that positive way, it creates positive endorphins in your
Hmm.
brain. And suddenly you gain energy. It could be you're having such a bad day that you're lucky if you matched your socks.
Ah.
It could
Well,
be that kind of a day. But then I go, well, yeah, but you still have feet for your socks. You're still getting up. You still have, let's start at the basics and work up, because there's more things going right than you're giving yourselves credit for. We
hmm.
normalize, well, I should say, we minimize what we're familiar with, or we
Hmm.
marginalize what we're familiar with. We take for granted all the
Hmm.
things going right. And when we do that, we lessen them, and then we let the drama have more power. You have a
Hmm.
choice. Go back, what's going right, elevate that, and the drama lessens and the emotions neutralize. So, yeah, I know where the brain goes first. All of our brains
Hmm.
go there. It's
Hmm.
an old built-in historical, keep ourselves safe thinking. But we now live in a world where you do have choice, and you can
Right.
choose how you do things.
Well, that actually reminded me of the book which I read, and that was Six Thinking Hats,
Mm-hmm.
by El Borno, or maybe I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly of the author. But he actually mentioned about these different hats, which has different purpose of thinking as well. So there
Yeah.
was a black hat, which is for cautious thinking. What are the things that might go wrong? And you have to
Mhm.
think about that. And then there is a white hat, which thinks about all the facts which you have and how you can use those facts. And then there is a cap for, or there is a hat for creative thinking. There is a hat for positive things which might come out. So it was a pretty great book, and I can completely relate with that. That a brain obviously goes toward the cautiousness first because it wants to save us, but again brain can do certain more things, and if we are the one to assign them a particular work, a particular thought, things might go differently, and that's the best way to explain it. So thank you so much for giving that answer. However, we are almost at the end of the show, but before going over there, I would like to ask you one more thing, and that would be, if people wants to get connected with you, if people wants to get in touch with you, and when they do, what would be the one important thing which you would like to hear from them? And yeah, that's the question.
Okay. So I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and you can find me by my name, Carole with an E, Carole, Stizza, Stizza. And when you do reach out to me on LinkedIn, I would like to know what was the most favorite part of this podcast for you.
Mhm.
You also can go to my website, which is relevant-insight.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook with Relevant Insight Coaching. But LinkedIn is kind of the place I hang and have great conversations. So feel free. I love getting to meet people from every culture and every location. I find that our world is a lot smaller than we think it is, because we are all wanting the same thing. I love to remind people, especially leaders, um, that no one gets up any one day thinking, I just can't wait to suck today. I cannot wait to be a total
Right.
screw up. No, we all
Right.
get up to have the best day yet. And so if we're
Mm.
all trying to be our best, and yet somebody's doing it different than us, don't be angry. Try and
Mm.
value what that difference is providing you on that
Mm.
day, in that
Mm.
moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderfully said. Thank you so much, Carol, once again, to give this amazing insights and amazing wisdom of yours which you have given today. And I'm pretty sure this has helped a lot of people. And audience, if you think that this episode has added value in your life, then make sure to share it with your loved ones. With that being said, this is Aditya Mehta along with Carole Stizza signing off from this episode. See you in the next one. Till then, peace out.